Hey guys, this is Chris, and today we are going to talk about this big Hubsan Zino firmware update, and the topic is to update or not to update. First, I just want to say I haven't put much out here lately. I've taken a little bit of a break just in the past week just because work's been very busy. At the end of the day, I'm just too tired to do this. I do have to work for a living. At the end of the day, I just want to put my feet up and be with my family and hang out. And I've got my boys home from college right now, so kind of hanging out with them. And just kind of wanted to watch how things panned out with this. Plus, if you've been in a Facebook environment or group, speaking of which, I'm getting bombed with messages. Sorry, it's just something funny somebody said. But if you've been in a Facebook group, you know it can be exhausting. And if you know me, I've got my little bouts with a certain somebody, and he seems to have a little scab that follows along behind him, sniffing his butt. So if you're in this Hubsan Zino group, there's a couple people you need to watch out for, and I think you know who one of them is. And then just look for the one that's always right behind them, or just look for me to make a comment and see what follows. And I usually get trashed. So after a while, that just gets to be to where it's like, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with children, and I just need to take a break, and that's what I've done. So for that person and his little scab, I have nothing further to say to either one of them. I will say this though, if you have noticed Mr. Peter Martin, he is one I'm speaking about. He's gone and changed his name to Pete Martin, CQ guy. Now this has to do with radio, but it's funny that he does CQ guy after I changed my name to QC guy. And I'm sure there's more entertainment to follow there in the future. He's probably up to some childish little game, like always. So, to everybody that supports me or subscribes to my channel or anything, this cup of coffee here today, this little message is for you. But for the others that I've mentioned, these other two, Mr. Martin and this scab, there's a different message for you. So take that how you want it. It doesn't mean you're number one. But anyhow, let's get on to the topic of the Zino, and I just want to make some simple suggestions. These are just my opinions, but this is a big update for the Zino. It's not just a camera update. You have your FC, your gimbal, your camera, and now you have this big talked about controller update, and I have advice for you on how to update it. What I think is the smartest way of doing it, and this is the one way I do it, and when it's a multiple update like this. I did not do it with the FEMI, and I wish I would have, because that was a big update. But then again, the way the FEMI updates, it doesn't really give you that choice. But with Hubsan, you do everything manually. It's not an automatic update. You don't just say okay and it's done. So you can at least do what I'm going to suggest. I suggest that you don't just go and throw everything in there. Hubsan is telling you update everything at once, and that is not true. You do not have to do that. You can simply update the FC and check it all out, make sure everything is okay, and then move on from there. And that's what I recommend people do. If you go and update everything, and then all of a sudden you have 1, 2, 3 problems, you don't know what caused it. So simply just update your FC, check everything out, make sure it's working properly. If you notice anything strange or weird, you know it came from the FC update. And also you can see what it fixed. So, you know, a lot of people are starting to talk positive about this update and saying that it's fixed things. I don't believe anybody that says it's fixed everything. I just do not see that as possible. it would be wonderful, because then I could just praise this thing like it's a god. But I really don't see that happening in this update. I'm not expecting miracles, but I do expect progress. So update the FC, go out and check, make sure everything's working. Update your gimbal, test everything there, make sure everything is working properly. Test your, do your camera update. That's probably one of the most critical updates in this Zino, is that camera update. That's where everybody seems to kind of mess up or have problems, and all of a sudden you don't have Wi-Fi or something like that. So you do these all separate, then you'll figure out, oop, I have no Wi-Fi, I cannot connect this thing whatsoever. Well, everything was fine till I updated the camera. So that gives you something in the form of troubleshooting if you do come into a problem. And then you have the transmitter or controller. Everybody, including myself, was like, what the hell are they talking about? We have to do a jumper. But for me, it was just because they weren't saying why. It's obvious why. If you've been in electronics or computers or anything, basically you're doing that jumper, and it works. The simplest way to put it is it basically does like a restore install. So you make that jumper and hook to the tool, select your file and all that, and basically it kind of works as a restore, but fixes something that just a firmware update itself is not going to fix. So I've talked to some Hubsan associates, and they've confirmed that's pretty much exactly what it is. And the only answer I have not gotten is, are you going to have to do this every time you do a firmware update? I myself, just knowing what it does, I don't see this as something you're going to have to do every time. From this update after, as long as there is nothing major that needs to be reset within this, it'll just be normal firmware updates where you'll plug in your micro USB to the side and you'll do your update, and the process will be a lot simpler. So for this, I just wanted to discuss the different options people are talking about. Again, I have not done the update, but I have tried different things. So here's the one problem. This is kind of in your way. And simply just get yourself something. I'm going to just take a little screwdriver, open this up, and use the screwdriver just to kind of hold it in place. So that way I have all the clearance that I need. So the one thing I wanted to talk about is people are coming up with ideas, and one of them's a little JST type connector, and I made one up myself. I just made one with a small wire looped, put some heat shrink on it, and it's done. The only thing I've noticed is it's very tight in there, so I have to file down the sides of this to make the outside of it smaller, and then slide it over the pins. This is all fine. This is the easiest, because you're not bending the pins, you're not harming them, damaging them, or anything like that. But you want to make sure you do feel a little bit of tension back when you're pushing it on. That way you know you have a good connection. If you just go, it slides right on, you don't have a very good connection, and chances are you're going to fail this update. So that's the whole thing. You want to make sure you have a good connection. I use very short wire and did a loop, not a real big long wire tied together at the end. I think shorter the wire, the better. So this is probably what I'll use, but if you don't have the capability of making one of these up, you don't have one anywhere, which if you're in the hobby, you've got something with this plug on it that you could probably salvage from. Rob Peter to pay Paul. So I'm not talking about Peter Martin, I'm talking about biblical. You can make one of these up if you have the scraps or laying around. Another thing you can do is you can take an alligator clip, but alligator clips have these sharp teeth on them, and they don't necessarily grab those two pins. I've done it, and I put it on there, and it wants to kind of pop off. The best thing I can recommend is to file the teeth flat, so you have a flat grabbing surface. You would have to file all these teeth nice and flat, and then that way it'll grab onto those two pins. It won't slip or pop off. and you'll make your connection. And then the other way is the way Hubsan suggests, which is tweezers, and you're actually bending, pulling the pins together. And if you have to do that enough times, you're going to end up breaking those pins, and then you're done. You have a repair to make with those pins. So my suggestion there, if this is your only method, take your tweezers, put them on there. You're not going to be able to hold these tweezers on there, plug it in, do your whole update, turn it on and all that stuff without slipping. You can, I'm sure. If anybody knows the game Operation, where you take the body part out without hitting the buzzer, that's kind of like what it's going to be like. So what I just came up with for that is, if this is your only method, stick it on there on the pins, pull them together, take you one of these paper clips and put them on there, and it'll hold the pins together and you can let go of it. So that's another option you can do. So really, this update process is not a big deal. It is something you need to do. It's something you have to do if you're going to update the controller the way they want you to update it today. Will you have to do it every single time? I really do not think so. I think this is a one-time thing, unless there is something else bigger than what just firmware itself can install, over installing firmware onto old firmware. So it's not that big of a deal. Just make sure you either take the advice I gave you, or if somebody else came up with a better idea, like one guy mentioned forceps. I couldn't find mine. I had a pair. If you've ever been in the hospital, they don't sterilize this stuff anymore, so if they've used forceps on you, you can ask for them to give them to you when they're done. And in my case, the guy was cool, because I thought they'd be good for fishing, for doing fishing, tying or making your flies and stuff like that. So the guy was actually cool when I was in the hospital, and he gave me the forceps. So that's one way you can obtain them, or you can just go on Amazon or anywhere and probably buy them. But I can't find them. I don't know where the heck they are, but they would probably work too, where you can get them in there and click, 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 and then they'll hold on. But again, you're bending those pins. I don't think that's really the best way. So that's pretty much it. Just go into the Facebook groups. You can't go into the forum, so that part's out. If you relied on the Hubsan RC forum, I don't know when they're going to bring that. Sometime this month, they say. They keep delaying that, so that just gets even more mysterious to me, what's going on there. I am convinced when the forum comes back, it's going to come back as a clean slate. So it's going to be starting all over again. That's just my opinion. But go into Hubsan, join my group, ask questions, talk to others, get the ball rolling on the topic of the Hubsan Zino update. And you guys all know the problems that existed in the flight control. And when I say problems, I'm not saying these are things that are just terrible. These are just issues. They're flaws. Ask about if the new update fixed those issues. Find things that make it worth you making the decision to make the update. Don't just jump in there and update this thing. Do your homework, and I think most of my subscribers are smart enough to where they are doing their homework right now, making the decision, hey, should I update this? Let's see what everybody's saying. I don't think anybody's in a really big hurry. There were several people in the Hubsan Zino group that just jumped right in there and updated it, and they're saying everything is fixed and fine. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. If you said it just fixed this or that, I believe that. But I do not think Hubsan came along with a firmware update that solved all of Zino's problems, especially the disconnect. I don't think that's ever going to be resolved for the disconnect overhead, and for that it's just because of the antenna style or type. The direction is all out here, not down here. So when you're under it, that's when you're going to get your disconnect. When you're out away from it, you're not getting that disconnect. these antennas point out, not directly at you when they're flying, when it's flying away. That's another good time to get a disconnect. When it's facing you, your chances are far less. So that's the type of thing that's not, I don't think it's ever going to be fixed with the Zino. You're still always going to have this disconnect. And it's not abnormal with any quad. It's just how easy and how often the Zino does that disconnect that I have an issue with. So that's pretty much it, guys. And again, I'm gonna finish up this video. I'm gonna hop into my group and check things out, and then I'm gonna go into the Zino group where you can't post unless it's something not too edgy. They're monitoring every post, and they have to be submitted for approval. But I'm going to go in there and see what people are saying this morning about doing their Hubsan update, and try my best to stomach a certain Pete Martin and his scab, who seems to follow right along behind him. So again, to you and to my subscribers, have a nice day. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you just stumbled along here, subscribe to my channel. And I am not anti-Hubsan. I'm not bashing Hubsan. I'm not any of these things you see a certain person say. I'm just giving it to you truthfully, honestly, and a lot of it's just my opinion. And you are probably a smart enough person to decide for yourself what to do when it comes to doing a firmware update or purchasing the Zino or what have it. I'm just giving my opinions. And I think most of you appreciate that. It's just the people who have an issue with me because they've been removed from my Facebook group for good reason. You don't just get removed for disagreeing with me. You're removed for good reason. So these are the people that are the ones, running their mouth about me being a basher and anti-Hubsan and all that. Or, how could I talk this way after Hubsan's done so much for me? Hubsan didn't do anything for me. I worked my ass off for over 2 years with Hubsan. If you are a full tilt tester of everything, the firmware, the hardware, the new models, the old models, model changes, stuff like that, there is nothing simple about it, especially when you're working a full-time job. You completely lose the hobby, and that's what I was doing. I gave Hubsan all of my free time. What did I get? I got free samples. Is that a great thing? No, it's not a great thing, because when you're getting, like when I got the Zino, it was miserable. I hated testing the Zino, and they weren't listening to anything. So Hubsan didn't do anything for me. I'm not being disrespectful to Hubsan because they did stuff for me. They did nothing for me. I formed my own Facebook group. I built that Facebook group off of myself and great members. They made the group. I started a YouTube channel, and I put the content on there. Hubsan didn't do it. So Hubsan did nothing for me. I was busting my butt for Hubsan. And I can't tell you how nice it is not to be doing that anymore. It's just incredible. So the person watching, he knows I'm talking who I'm talking about. It's him. He seems to run his mouth every time I'm in these groups. So I'm going to give it a go this morning and go in there and see if I can avoid this person and just ignore everything he says. So those of you not subscribing, click that button. Give that thumbs up, guys. The other thing is I'm following up with the black motors on the 501. I've got my final testing. I just need to put that video together. So I have some days off here. I'll be off the next 4 days, so hopefully I can catch up and get everything done. Wishful thinking, right? All right, that's it. So everybody, have a nice day. To my buddies out there, it's good coffee. All right, take care. Peace.